Thank you, Sue, for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. I'm sorry I can't see you all. Maybe, it's always difficult speaking to a screen. But anyway, I'm aware of you being there. Sue's introduced me. I moved sideways from being a consultant surgeon at the Children's Hospital in retirement. I'd known about REACH as the charity that supported our children with upper limb differences that we saw. And we were seeing about 400, 600 new babies a year. So REACH was always with me. So it was a sort of natural sideways move to become a trustee of that organisation. We're talking really about parental expectation of having a normal, perfect child. And it comes as a bit of a shock when things aren't quite right. And we're talking now about really visible differences that may or may not have been picked up antenatally. I'm just showing these because it's the sort of follow on from my moment of the week. I mean, I didn't expect to have two great big lads who tower over me. And also, this is what you do, two plastic surgeons. My husband's a plastic surgeon as well, and both retired. We go paddling at the seaside, which I hadn't done for years, and I was determined to go. What we're dealing with today is this huge range of, I'm calling them anomalies, but they're really differences. And there's a huge, enormous range from the very simple little accessory digit to a whole forearms missing or bent or all sorts. And it's really, no one would expect you to know any much about the conditions. They need to be dealt with by or looked at by a specialist. I have put this in, Tash, I didn't warn you I was putting this in, but I thought I would. These are the things we're not dealing with today, but if you see them, we could do with having them early. The vascular necrosis of the newborn is extremely rare, but we do, if we can, we do sometimes do a fasciotomy within the first 24 hours. The little skin tags are worth sending because we can do them as babies under local anaesthetic. After 6 weeks of age, they argue with us a bit too much, but under 6 weeks or under a few months, you can cuddle them and pop in a little local and just do them by being breastfed or cuddled. So it's worth getting those through to your local plastic surgery or hand surgery service. The story about obstetric brachial plexus palsy injuries and the paralysed arm, that's it's a whole story in itself, birth injuries, and I'm sure Sue, I'm sure you tackle this at some point, so I'm not going to tackle it, but in a way it's part, if there is pain, then it might well be an injury of some sort, and you may have to deal with the injury and deal with the parental anger that this, my baby has been injured. So I'm not going to deal with those. We're going to look at the actual, as Tasha's talked about, the congenital hand and upper limb differences, which are rare. You may only see one or two in your lifetime. We only pick up about 50% antenatally. There's an interesting. Oh, it's moved on itself. Never mind. Let's see if I can go back. In REACH, what we heard was that parents were going through a pretty traumatic experience when they discovered that their baby had an upper limb difference. And I was hearing it in my ears. So, oh no, wrong way. So we had this captive audience, if you like, of parents not related to the NHS. And we thought we would find out what's really going on, how the parents are responding after the this unexpected news. And my colleagues, Andrew is a registrar, a plastic surgery registrar, Orla is a psychosocial nurse up in Edinburgh, and Wheelam is a colleague of mine who is currently in Malaysia or somewhere, but he's still with me online. And he's the editor of the Journal of Hand Surgery, so it was rather nice having him on board. And we got this paper published. It didn't matter where it was published really, but it was published in a journal of hand surgery. And what we aimed to do, it was a survey, was to evaluate parental experience and determine when and how parents first learnt of the difference, what information they were given, to try and understand the emotional experience that they were going through, and ask the parents how the journey could be improved. We used a national cross-sectional survey all throughout UK and Ireland, but we restricted it to 10 years old because we thought children under 10 years old, so that the parents could probably remember their experience. And it was mixed methodology. Some of it was quantitative and some of it was a thematic analysis of qualitative response. So we left them space to write their feelings down. We got 261 respondents. It wasn't all reach. We put it out on social media so that we got other parents from other organisations as well, and a pretty good covering of the UK. We had a huge range of abnormalities, although over 25% didn't know what the abnormality was called, which is interesting. In terms of the quantitative analysis, we had antenatal diagnosis in 41%, and postnatal in 56%, with some remaining uncertain when, they couldn't remember when they had got the diagnosis. Relevant information, only 28% of our parents felt that they were given relevant information at the time of the discovery. We went back to say to ask them whether they would like to receive the information about the diagnosis before birth. And it was an interesting response, because those who knew of the anomaly before birth wanted to know before birth, but those who learned of the anomaly postnatally wasn't quite so many wanting to know before birth. And we know that we can only achieve about 50% of antenatal diagnosis, because the guidelines for ultrasound only really ask for whether there are two bones in the forearm. So a lot of them are missed antenatally. We don't think there's any best pathway. We have to go with what pathway we've got. I don't think we can change that pathway. We're only going to see 50%. And so the approach has to be tailored to the individual. So 54% only saw a specialist within 3 months. Now, I think that's quite a long time. And we're beginning to think about doing something about that from our point of view. I'm still in touch with my congenital hand colleagues. And if they could now offer video calls, even a 10-minute, 15-minute video call within the first week after birth, that would be wonderful. I'm getting rather negative views from my colleagues at the moment, saying they've got too much to do and they can't do it. But the Birmingham lot are going to pilot it. I'm very pleased about that. 73% felt unsupported when they left hospital after the delivery. And over 90% searched for information themselves. I'm not surprised, because these are rare. Nobody really understands what's going on. But it's not a fantastic story. So we want to try and improve that. The three things that they were bothered about, parents: lack of support. Even the doctor said something different because they've never seen them before. And they didn't know where to go for information. Concerns about the future for the child. The first thing is the parents say, oh gosh, is my child going to be bullied at school? How are they going to manage? How are they going to go to the loo themselves? All sorts of things. Are they going to be able to play with other children? And the other problem was about the communication about what would happen next. In other words, the referral pathway. And that may not be straightforward, and that's not midwives' issue. It's an issue for the specialist services to make sure locally that the referral pathways are clear. Offer of termination is a difficult one. As soon as that's done, it's extremely negative. And if there are apologies, it's extremely negative. because we know that these children are likely to be absolutely normal. Here are some pictures of our kids. And they are going to live a very useful, productive life. And if you start with an apology or negativity, that is going to impact immediately on the way the parent perceives this child that hasn't come out quite perfect. So you're on the front line, and we know it's very rare, and you can be as shocked as the parents are because you may never have seen it before. Whatever Tasha said is the spike system, whatever it is very relevant. These parents need reassurance and support. And one of the main feelings that these parents have is guilt. And they think they've done something in the pregnancy. They've got an abnormality somewhere in the family, something. And it really needs to be stressed that it's not their fault. And I'm coming to that in a minute as to how easy it is to do that. And we've talked about inquiring locally as to what the appropriate referral pathway is. You may not have seen it. You're going to have to do the investigation. But remember that children are incredibly adaptable, and particularly these children with upper limb. If they're only born with one limb, they're amazing. So just very simple learning points. Single limb involvement, they will need a further consultation, but it's likely they will live a normal and productive life, and they're unlikely to have other problems. If it's bilateral, they're going to need a bit more investigations, but they are still likely to have a relatively normal, successful life. Where there are multiple anomalies on your examination, then they need more urgent referral, because you can't offer them an immediate and complete reassurance. But they're on a journey then of discovery, that you won't know, and maybe we won't know. Not everybody will know what the future for that child is, but it's a journey. And they will need to see the specialists, the geneticists and the paediatricians, and ourselves, the specialist hand surgeons. Let's start with the embryology, because in a way that gets rid of the guilt. It's very easy. The baby's hand is fully formed 6 to 7 weeks after fertilization. It's fully formed. It starts at 4 weeks, and by 6, 7 weeks, it's there. All fingers, everything separated. It's amazing. So the problem, or the mistake that I'm going to call it a mistake, happens before mum even knew she was pregnant. So it is nothing that the mother's done. She said, "Oh, did I have a glass of wine in the beginning of the pregnancy?" Or something like that. They're going to think, have I done something? But they haven't. It happens so fast, and the baby is developing at an extraordinary rate. And as you can see on there's this little video is I don't know how they did it, how it was made, but it's a very fast formation. I've put this slide up. It's far too complicated. Even I struggle with it. But in a way, because it's so complicated, it's not surprising that there is the occasional mistake. In the patterning, the way the limb is formed in those first few weeks goes from proximal to distal, back and the front are different, and the one side of the hand and the other side of the hand are different. And there are things called sonic hedgehog, little messengers that go from the cells to the as they're developing, which can easily get mistaken in them. And it's not necessarily genetic, it's just a happening. So yes, again, it's rather complicated. Where the mistake occurs will give a certain type of difference. You don't need to know all that. The important thing is knowing that it's happened very early in the pregnancy. That baby was fully there by 6 weeks. Mum only may have missed a period, but the actual mistake will have occurred even earlier than that. So I'm repeating what Tasha said. Be honest. If you don't know, you don't know. And you have to find out. But you can be positive And I think that's incredibly important for these parents to hear something positive. You can take away the guilt pretty quickly by saying, okay, this is a little mistake that happened way before you even knew you were pregnant. The access to a specialist, that's an interesting one. It's a joint effort here to get that right. In the immediate, before they leave hospital, they need to know what their pathway is. But the one thing you can do is refer to Reach. And Reach have got a wealth of information, and they've got other parents, and they've got children running around with these differences, which the mother with this tiny little baby can't see. And they need to be able to see what the future for their child is. And it's only by meeting other parents and other children that they'll get that. So Reach is the sort of forefront of the children's. There are other organisations as well, and we've written a booklet for new parents, which is about to be published on the website, and there are other organisations that can help as well. So what is Reach? It's really a family of families. I've loved being part of it. It's been really quite fun, and it sort of enables and empowers children to live what we're calling a life beyond limits. They are not limited, these children, and the adults. And the organisation was formed 40 years ago, so we're now dealing with a lot of adults and older young adults and older adults who have got through life very well and come back to us as role models, doing all sorts of things. And we obviously run weekends, family weekends, and we run. There is an activity week for Reach and Tash. No, the one in Birmingham Children's is our own West Midlands one. That we look at the children in the West Midlands region holistically, and we run a hand camp for them and activities through the Birmingham Children's hand and upper limb service. But that's local. But we always communicated with Reach about it, so they know about it, and there's a crossover between the two organisations. There are also there is a list of children's hand clinics, which hopefully Sue will give you access to on the resources. Before I retired, I made sure that happened, so that around the country there is a list of the centres where there are dedicated specialist children's hand clinics. And you should be able to access that so that you know who to refer to and where. The Reach family, as I say, is wonderful. And if you look at the ambassadors at the bottom, you may know some of these names. They're well-known people who have done extraordinary things despite their limb anomaly. And they come back and talk to the parents. And they're a great help, especially for the new parents who really can't see beyond the loss of an arm. They think, oh, panic. But then when they see the other children climbing, running around, swimming, everything, they feel a lot better. So those are our ambassadors who have been a great help to the organisation. I put this in just to show you what these children can do. We had a lot of fun during lockdown, and there was a lady put this together, and only for a minute. I particularly want to show you the brass instruments, which are to a certain extent easier for the children, but they tackle everything. I need to exit that. That's enough. I don't know how much you heard of that, but it was really, during lockdown, it was a great exercise to do for them. Thank you.